So water. If we're talking about a desert, we automatically assume that there's no water. And having no water means no life. If there's no water, you can't have any vegetation, you can't have any animals there because animals drink water too. So if you have a desert, that means there's no water, and that means there's no life, okay? If you are in an area where there's only sand and mud and just, dry dirt, then even if it rains, it doesn't seep into the ground, it just floods, it just goes down and it drags the soil with it, so it erodes the soil, it breaks it down. But you don't want that, you want the soil to stay there. You want the roots of the plants to be in there so that it's holding on to the soil, but it's also capturing the water. And it's not just water they're capturing, I'm going to show it to the next slide. Nutrients too. And they're called microbiomes, but we're going to, very important. So if you have rainfall, but if you're in an area where there's no vegetation or limited, go for it. So if you're in an area where there's very limited vegetation, not a lot of plants, and you have rain coming down, it won't soak into the land, it won't soak into the vegetation, it won't help anybody because it'll just flood down. And as it floods down, it'll take away, it'll chop off pieces of the soil and it'll just flood it downwards. And that's not a good idea. So what is an effective way of capturing rainfall? You need to have a lot of plants, like Jay said, so that it penetrates and flows through the soil throughout the plants. Okay, so this is why having plants is important. Okay, so far so good? Soil degradation, this is the map. I believe it's from the UN. And it's a map where the red shows very high degradation, so really, really bad situation.
Korea is not that high.
Korea is relatively okay.
But Japan is like nothing.
Well, if you look at the thing, like Japan is doing okay. Korea, we have either high degradation or moderate degradation, which is not so good. But if you look at the red areas, that's where it's really just, it's a desert. And there's no plantation going on.
There's like no desert and let's say like below what's the
Topsoil?
No, what's that? The
equator.
Yeah, below that there's I think there's a lot more than above. Yeah. Why?
Of course, because desert is like very dry.
No, but then like cold places are technically dry too.
But the key word here isn't soil desertification, it was degradation, it's degraded. Now, is lack of water a source, a good factor for degradation? Of course, but there's other factors involved, and this is why you have to understand this part. And this is the key ingredient for you understanding the pro side, okay? Microbiome. So in a soil, in a good soil, in a soil that's good for agriculture, good for harvesting crops. It's not just there's a lot of water in there. Obviously that's really important to have water, to be able to soak in water. But there's a bunch of stuff living in the soil, and they're called microbiome, or the entire system is called microbiome. And what's in it? There's fungi, there's bacteria, there's earthworms, and there's a bunch of other stuff that I don't know in detail, but that help the fertility and the nutrition of the soil. And we have trillions of microbiome bacteria in our gut as well, and they affect our mood. So know that these microbiomes exist everywhere, even in the soil, and having a lot of it is key to making fertile soil. Not just water, obviously water helps with it, but just having water in and of itself isn't gonna cut it. The reason why water is important is because it supports the microbiome, okay? Earthworms is especially important, is because earthworms,
they can like mix the soil with the dry and the fertile ones and make the thing really good quality, like as they move around the soil.
Sure, so the idea is, if you're making compost, which is fertilizing the land that you want to use for agriculture, what you do is you take a bunch of food or leftover plant matter and you make it into a mulch, and then you throw in earthworms in there, and they will chop it up, they'll eat it all up, and they will poop out whatever earthworms poop out, and that is soil. That is soil. Okay, does that make sense? So you need to have these microorganisms, small mammals and small whatever living things inside the soil so that it is a good soil for agriculture. Does that make sense? So far so good? Okay. So this is where today's main topic or today's main thrust comes in.
Oh my god.
There's a concept called holistic management. Holistic management. Who wants to tell me what holistic means? What do you think it means? The opposite word to holistic would be reductionist, but let's just focus on holistic. Yeah.
I searched it up.
Okay.
It says it's characterized by a comprehension of the parts of something
I'm
as
sorry, loud and clear.
wait, is that the wait. So holistic is well here it says characterized by a comprehension of the parts of something as intimately interconnected and yeah, a difficult word and then yeah.
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 Who wants to have a go? What do you think this word means? Holistic. 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 Just put it into your own words. Don't read it off the chart. Just put it into your own words. Yeah, what do you think it means?
Because you said like whole, I think like how you manage the land in a whole.
As a whole, you treat it as a whole. So not like a hole you dig, but as in one thing, one symbiotic thing. Okay, does that make sense? So what this guy named Alan Savory, he did a TED talk in 2013, and it's gotten a lot of acclaim, but also a lot of criticisms. And his idea was very simple. He says in his talk that experts throughout the world, all the universities, all the authoritative figures will tell you livestock is bad for the soil because they overgraze. They eat up all the vegetation, and that's what causes desertification. Because animals roam free and they eat up all the grass and all the vegetation out there, that's what causes the land to be barren and of no vegetation. What Alan is proposing is the exact opposite. It's like, yeah, sure, for thousands of years we've been farming, we've been grazing, sure, and maybe you can argue that that is the cause of the desertification, but we need to bring this back. So if a land that was usually perfect for agriculture now has been desertified, has become a desert, we have to put that back. We have to return, restore it into its original state. And what's the best way to do it? He's saying the only way to do it is through livestock. The only way to do it is through livestock.